So I want you to just pick up the coffee cup sitting on your desk right now. Or, just hold your smartphone for a second. Because within that completely mundane action is this invisible, honestly, kind of chaotic symphony of thermodynamics, electromagnetic radiation, and biological homeostatic panic.
It really is, yeah.
Which is wild. So welcome to today's deep dive. Today is Saturday, April 18th, 2026. And for you, our resident learner, we are exploring this really fascinating newly published book. It's called Opening High School Science and Daily Life, an Introduction to the Science of Living, Technology, and Earth.
Right, and it's quite a title, but the core argument here is just, well, it's brilliant.
Yeah. The mission today is to show that science isn't some, agonizing list of terms you memorize for a test and then immediately forget.
Exactly.
It is actually a shortcut to reading the physical world around you. It's the invisible scaffolding holding up everything you do.
And when we stop treating scientific disciplines as these isolated bubbles of laboratory knowledge, the physical world literally looks different. You stop seeing a room full of static objects and you start seeing, energy in transit.
Okay, I want to test that premise immediately. Let's take the room that you, the listener, are sitting in right now. Like, if you touch a metal chair leg or a metal spoon, and then you touch a wooden desk, the metal feels noticeably colder, right?
Yeah, classic example.
But they've been sitting in the exact same room at the exact same ambient temperature all day. So why does that happen?
Well, it's because the metal doesn't actually contain less heat than the wood. What you're experiencing there is the rate of heat transfer.
Oh, okay.
Right? So metal is a highly efficient conductor of thermal energy. So when your hand touches it, the metal is rapidly pulling thermal energy out of your skin.
Wow. Okay.
And your nervous system registers that rapid energy loss as cold. Wood, on the other hand, is an insulator, so it resists that flow, and your hand retains its heat.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I always picture the mechanics of this through the book's breakdown of heat transfer. Like, conduction touching that spoon is like passing a bucket of water down a line of people, hand to hand, right?
Yes, perfect analogy. The heat moves directly through the physical structure.
Right. But then convection, though, is like one person taking that bucket and just walking it across the room themselves.
Exactly.
Like hot air physically rising to the ceiling, or boiling water circulating in a pot. The fluid medium itself is physically moving.
Yeah, and then that physical transfer is bypassed entirely when we talk about radiation.
Right, the third one.
Right, so the sun warms your face through a window via electromagnetic waves. That requires absolutely no physical medium or particles to carry the heat. It literally travels through the vacuum of space.
Which is so crazy to think about.
It is. And that same family of electromagnetic wave behavior, it connects almost everything in your house.
Yeah, the visible light that lets you see the walls is just this tiny, tiny sliver of the full electromagnetic spectrum. Like, it blows my mind that the fundamental physics governing how a mirror reflects your face, or, how the convex lenses in your glasses bend light to focus an image on your retina, is the exact same mechanism bringing Wi-Fi to your smartphone.
It's all the exact same phenomenon. The only difference is just the frequency of the wave.
That's incredible.
And we rely on those invisible frequencies constantly. I mean, microwaves heat up the water molecules in your leftovers by blasting them at a specific resonant frequency.
Right.
And radio waves carry dense packets of digital information. The engineering of our whole modern life is entirely based on manipulating those invisible wavelengths.
Which totally dictates the physical design of the objects around us, too.
Oh, absolutely.
Because structure dictates function. Like, we use plastic polymers for the handle of a frying pan because they're poor heat conductors. They act as that thermal bottleneck to protect our hands.
Right, they're insulator.
But then we use aluminum for the pan itself because its atomic structure freely passes that thermal energy from the stove straight into the food.
And, understanding that atomic structure completely reframes how we should view recycling.
Oh, yeah. The book makes a huge point about this.
Yeah, because we so often treat recycling as just a waste management issue. Like, let's just keep the trash out of the landfill.
Right, a chore.
Exactly. But resources are finite. When you melt down recycled aluminum, you are taking advantage of a structure that has already been refined.
Ah, I see.
It requires a massive fraction less energy compared to, say, mining raw bauxite ore and extracting brand new aluminum. You're preserving the energy already invested in the material's existence.
So essentially, every plugged-in object in this room is just a mechanism for converting energy from one form to another,
Precisely.
like electrical energy into visible light or chemical energy from a battery into the mechanical energy of a fan motor.
Yet the catch is no conversion is ever perfectly efficient. The laws of thermodynamics dictate that there is always a loss.
Always.
Always. And that loss usually bleeds out as ambient heat.
So my laptop, basically doubling as a space heater on my desk, isn't just a design flaw.
Nope.
It's a thermodynamic inevitability. The inefficiency of the processor's electrical conversion is literally raising the temperature of the room I'm sitting in.
Every appliance you own is bleeding thermal energy.
Okay, so the energy efficiency of the room directly impacts the biological machine occupying it me.
Exactly. We're zooming in now.
Right. If the ambient temperature changes, my body has to compensate. And the source material emphasizes this whole concept of homeostasis. Like, the human body is not a static object. It is relentlessly working to protect its internal environment.
It has to. Your self can only function within an incredibly narrow parameter of conditions.
Right, like what?
We're talking core temperature, blood pH, water balance, glucose levels. I mean, walk outside into freezing weather, and your internal temperature doesn't just drop to match the air.
Right, thankfully.
Yeah, your body initiates this massive cascade of reactions. Yeah.
It shivers to generate mechanical heat, and it constricts the blood vessels near the skin to hoard warmth in the core.
Yes, and the body uses the nervous system for those instant reactions, like pulling your hand off a hot stove before the brain even consciously registers the pain.
That fast nerve signal.
Exactly. But then it relies on the endocrine system for the slower, sort of long-term structural fixes.
Okay, so the hormones.
Right. Hormones are basically chemical messengers designed for systemic adjustments. So you eat a meal, your blood sugar spikes. The endocrine system then releases insulin from the pancreas, unlocking your cells so they can absorb that glucose. It's a slower, highly orchestrated adjustment that keeps the entire biological machine stable.
And keeping that machine stable requires constant inputs, which fundamentally changes how we really should be viewing sleep and nutrition.
Oh, entirely.
Because the text points out that sleep isn't some passive power down mode, like turning off a computer. It is a highly active biological state.
It's crucial. It is the period where your brain consolidates memory, clears out metabolic waste products, and regulates hormone production.
Wow.
So structurally impairing your sleep means you are actively degrading your nervous and endocrine systems.
That's terrifying, actually.
It is. And similarly, food isn't merely fuel to be burned in a furnace. The proteins you consume are literally disassembled into amino acids and reassembled into your own muscle tissue and enzymes.
So you really are what you eat.
Literally. And water isn't just hydration, it's the thermal regulator and the transport medium for every single chemical reaction keeping you alive.
Okay, wait. Especially in recent years, we've been taught to sanitize absolutely everything.
Oh, yes.
We wipe down packages, we use antibacterial gels obsessively, we treat basically all microorganisms as hostile invaders. Are we looking at this all wrong?
Well, what's fascinating here is how the source material addresses this.
Yeah.
Science operates without moral labels like good or evil. It operates on context. We fear microbes because a microscopic number of cells can multiply exponentially and collapse our health.
Right, the invisibility factor.
Exactly. But infection is just a specific scenario where harmful microbes bypass our immune defenses. In different contexts, humans are deeply reliant on microbial partnerships.
Oh, like fermentation. That's the perfect example.
Yes.
It isn't food rotting. It is a highly controlled biological transformation. Like,
Yeah.
we harness yeast to release carbon dioxide and make bread dough rise.
Exactly.
Or we rely on lactic acid bacteria to alter the chemical structure of dairy into yogurt, or soybeans into soy sauce.
And taking it even further, fungi and bacteria are the primary decomposers of the entire planet.
The recycling system.
Without them breaking down complex organic molecules, the Earth's nutrient cycle would completely halt. Dead matter would just accumulate infinitely.
Wow, yeah.
We even use engineered microbes in wastewater treatment facilities to consume organic pollutants. It requires moving past that blind fear and understanding the specific conditions under which these organisms operate.
So, the human body is this delicately balanced ecosystem, teeming with microbes, fighting for homeostasis. But that microecosystem is standing on a planetary macroecosystem that's engaged in its own massive balancing act.
Yes, let's zoom out to the Earth itself.
And the energy driving almost all of these global systems traces back to one singular engine, the sun.
Right, and the sun does far more than just illuminate the daytime sky. The uneven heating of the Earth's surface by solar radiation is actually the primary driver of our atmosphere.
Really?
Yeah, it creates pressure differentials that manifest as wind. It provides the thermal energy necessary to evaporate oceans, which drives the entire global water cycle.
So even what we consider green technology is just indirect solar power when you think about it.
Pretty much.
Like wind turbines are harvesting the atmospheric currents created by that uneven solar heating. Hydroelectric dams are capturing the kinetic energy of water that the sun evaporated, lifted into the atmosphere, and dropped at a higher elevation.
And the mechanics of our planet's movement in relation to that sun shape, our entire perception of time. The cycle of day and night is simply our specific location on the globe rotating into and out of the sun's light.
And the explanation for the seasons is where the physics really click for me in this book.
It's a great section.
Yeah, because we don't experience winter because the Earth's orbit takes us further away from the sun. That's a huge misconception.
A very common one. Yep.
It is entirely about the angle of incidence. Because the Earth is tilted on its axis, during winter, your hemisphere leans away from the sun.
Right.
So the solar radiation comes in at a shallow angle, spreading the exact same amount of thermal energy over a much larger surface area. It dilutes the heat.
And then summer occurs when your hemisphere tilts toward the sun, causing those rays to hit more directly. The energy is concentrated onto a smaller area.
It's so elegant.
And ancient humans didn't need telescopes to understand this. They used geometry. By tracking the apparent motion of the stars, the way the sky seems to move while we are actually the ones spinning beneath it, they mapped the seasons.
They turned pure observation into the foundation of astronomy and agriculture.
Exactly.
But the Earth is not just a passive sphere soaking up radiation. It is a violently active geological entity.
Very active.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The source material notes that natural beauty and natural hazards are born from the exact same processes.
Yes.
Like looking at a breathtaking mountain range or a lush coastal valley is actually like looking at a beautiful scar.
Oh, I love that metaphor.
Right. It is the byproduct of a massive tectonic engine that occasionally backfires.
Well, the tectonic forces that fold the Earth's crust to build those gorgeous peaks are the exact same forces that build up stress and snap, releasing seismic waves as earthquakes.
Right.
And the river systems that deposit rich, fertile sediment to create agricultural floodplains, those are the exact same rivers that will inevitably overtop their banks and flood.
So the landscape itself is applied science. The effects of an earthquake are not just determined by the magnitude on the Richter scale. The devastation depends entirely on the specific geological landforms we choose to build our cities over.
Right, because seismic waves travel differently through different materials.
Okay, how so?
Well, if a city is anchored to solid bedrock, the structural shaking is localized and manageable.
Right.
But if the city is built on soft, water-saturated sediment like reclaimed land near a bay, the vibrations increase the water pressure between the soil particles.
Oh, no.
Yeah, the ground loses its friction and literally behaves like a liquid. This is called liquefaction. Entire buildings can sink completely intact.
That is terrifying.
It is. But that's why disaster preparedness is about recognizing the historical behavior of a dynamic system, not just reacting to random acts of nature.
Okay, so we've spent centuries reverse engineering these natural systems, from tectonic plates down to the endocrine system.
Right.
But the real test of scientific literacy today is applying that exact same analytical rigor to the synthetic systems we are inventing right now.
Yes, navigating tomorrow.
Right. The text pivots heavily into artificial intelligence and bioethics, arguing that as machines get smarter, human scientific literacy becomes profoundly more critical, not less.
Exactly, because when an AI generates a polished, highly confident answer in seconds, it feels authoritative.
It totally does.
It feels like an oracle. But a scientifically literate mind pauses to examine the mechanism. Large language models are probability engines. They are not fact databases.
Right, they're predicting the next word.
Exactly. So we have to ask, what specific data set was this trained on? Is there a sampling bias in that data?
Because if the training data contains human biases, the algorithm mathematically amplifies them.
Yes.
The scientific habit forces us to evaluate the methodology behind the output. We have to learn to differentiate between a mathematically probable sentence and a verified, evidence-backed fact.
And that ability to evaluate information is paramount right now. I mean, we are bombarded with scientific-sounding claims online every single day.
Oh, constant.
Someone cites a study showing a correlation between a specific diet and longevity.
Right.
Without scientific literacy, we might mistake that correlation for direct causation, completely ignoring other variables like income, healthcare access, or genetics.
And the stakes are scaling up exponentially. Medical advancements have pushed us straight into the realm of bioethics.
Deeply.
Because we no longer just read DNA with tools like CRISPR, we can precisely edit genetic sequences. We can literally snip out mutations.
Which is incredible, but
But this creates a profound data privacy and ethical nightmare. Like, if we can sequence your genome and predict a high probability of a costly disease, who owns that information? Your insurance company, your employer.
the primary question shifts from what can science achieve to what should we allow.
Exactly.
And energy infrastructure faces the exact same complex reality. The societal pivot from fossil fuels to renewable energy isn't just flipping a switch.
Right, unfortunately.
Fossil fuels are incredibly energy dense and easily transportable. Transitioning away from them requires massive grid overhauls, mining for rare earth metals, for battery storage, and incredibly complex economic trade-offs.
So what does this all mean? How do we practically apply this when we're doom-scrolling through news about AI and climate change tonight?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, science does not provide a moral cheat sheet.
Okay.
It's a framework for judgment. It gives us the tools to weigh the environmental cost of a lithium mine against the atmospheric cost of a coal plant.
Right.
It prepares us to make responsible decisions in an uncomfortably nuanced world. True education isn't about collecting trivia. It's about developing the capacity to dissect complex problems, demand evidence, and understand the cascading consequences of our choices.
That is perfectly said.
Tom?
And to ground all these massive concepts, from the mechanics of an algorithm to the shifting of tectonic plates, the author concludes the book with this deeply humanizing short story.
Oh, Mina's story.
Yes, it follows a high school student named Mina Fujisawa, and she struggles with science, finding concepts like convection and refraction totally abstract, just empty words on a chalkboard.
Right. Totally relatable for a lot of people.
Completely. But then she catches a summer fever and is forced to stay home.
She's sitting alone in her warm apartment, feeling terrible, and she puts on her glasses.
Because she is physically isolated and still, she starts truly observing the room.
Yeah.
She watches the condensation gathering on the outside of a glass of cold water. She feels the hot air trap near the ceiling while the floor remains cool. She notices the way the curved lenses of her glasses bend the incoming light from the window so her eyes can finally focus on the details of the wall.
The physics and chemistry aren't happening in a textbook anymore. They are executing perfectly on her coffee table.
Yes. She realizes her science notes are exact mathematical descriptions of her immediate reality.
It's a great moment.
And she writes down this incredibly poignant realization. She writes, "I used to think understanding meant adding something new to the world. Now I think it may be the moment when the world, unchanged, comes into focus."
That's beautiful.
It really is. The book suggests science is just a transparent lens. It doesn't strip the mystery from the universe. It makes the mystery precise.
And this raises an important question about how we view learning as adults, too. Well, we often assume learning requires ingesting heavy terminology first, like reading the dictionary before speaking.
Right.
But the most enduring way to learn is to start with the tangible objects right in front of you, the heat of the laptop on your desk, the condensation on a glass, and work backward to uncover the invisible principles supporting them.
That reframes things completely. You aren't just a passive resident of a chaotic universe.
No, not at all.
You are surrounded by this deeply logical symphony of physics, biology, and geology, and you actually possess the capacity to understand the sheet music.
Well said.
Thank you. Let's recap the journey of this conversation because we've covered a lot.
We really have.
We started by looking at the thermal dynamics of your desk and the electromagnetic waves bouncing off your walls. We connected that external energy environment to the internal biological environment of your body.
Exploring that relentless balancing act of homeostasis and our complex partnerships with microbes.
Exactly. And then we scaled up to the Earth, tracing weather and seasons back to the geometry of solar radiation, and recognized that our beautiful landscapes require an understanding of their historical geological violence.
And finally, we applied that exact same analytical framework to the synthetic future. Recognizing the training mechanisms behind AI, the ethical trade-offs of gene editing, and the infrastructure demands of our energy grid.
Which leaves me with a final thought for you to consider today. We have established that the physical world is governed by these invisible, discoverable principles: light, heat, biology, geology.
Hmm.
But as we migrate further into digital spaces governed by AI and algorithmic feeds, what happens when we realize these digital environments are developing their own hidden laws of physics?
Oh, that's a fascinating thought.
Right, like data flows like ocean currents, algorithms create their own gravitational pull, trapping our attention. Viral information moves through populations exactly like biological pathogens.
Well, yeah.
How long until we require an entirely new branch of daily life science just to survive the invisible synthetic ecosystems we built ourselves?
That is, wow, something to think about the next time you open a social media app.
Exactly. Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration. Put on your own transparent lenses and look at your world a little bit differently today.